Now, Gene Munster. Gene flipping Flapjack and Munster. Man, did he do a job on CNBC today, okay? So, Gene Munster, first off, he's been a pretty well-respected Apple analyst for a long, long time. You know, he covers a few different stocks, but Apple's always kind of been the big one, right? And Gene Munster, I always felt like he was pretty level-headed, and I always thought he had pretty good takes. And I don't know what's going on with Gene Munster, but this man's become just a straight pumper now at this point in time, okay? It was funny because I even was speaking to a friend about this because he got to see the segment as well, and my friend is a very big Apple shareholder, right? Gene Munster went on there today on CNBC and now is talking about Apple's got a clear path to $4 trillion. Clear path, right? And they pressed him on it. They pressed him on valuation. He had nothing to say about that other than like, well, other companies, this is how lost Gene Munster is. He's like, well, other consumer staples trade at, PEs in the 20s, so why shouldn't Apple trade at a PE in the 30s since they outgrow them? Gene Munster, in all due respect, sir, Apple is a business in decline, factually, not in opinion, factually, Apple is a business in decline, based upon factual evidence, as in Apple's earnings. They're a business in decline. And so to sit there and say, they deserve a much bigger multiple, which was his, holy smokes, man, my hair's a little crazy. Much bigger multiple is what he was saying. How can you say that? How can you say that when there's a business in decline? And this goes to show you just kind of like, this is the type of stuff that scares me a little bit in the market. Because now we're starting to get into these sorts of things. And my friend brought out a good point. He's like, where were these analysts, where were these guys last year, to saying load the boat on these stocks? Because these same individuals, many of them, were not the ones that were out there banging their hands on the table saying, you better be buying right now. Like, this is a tremendous opportunity. For Apple, it's only gotten worse over the past 9 months. And yet Apple hit a low about 9 months ago. And so you should have been banging your hand on the table saying Apple, Apple, Apple back then. And now all of a sudden it's now 3 trillion plus, and now you're talking about 4 trillion when the fundamentals of Apple have only gotten actually worse over the past 9 months. So that's the kind of thing that I'm a little scared of that we're starting to see in this market is things like that, right? And you look at a stock like Apple, right? Apple trades at a 32, 33 PE ratio on this, right? And we're talking about a business in decline for 2023. Analyst numbers all have EPS, revenue going down. You look at their last quarter, down. So we're talking about a business in decline. Now you might say, well, Jeremy, how can you speak about valuation when you own Tesla? It's such a huge position for you. And, Tesla trades at about 2.5 times the PE ratio of Apple. So who are you to speak on valuation? Well, that's where it pays to be a little more experienced in the market and be able to view things a little bit differently. Tesla is expected to grow revenues 22% this year. 22%. Okay? Apple's revenues are expected to go down this year. So we have one business that is in epic growth mode, that is Tesla, and we have one business that is in decline. So, does one business not deserve to trade at least 2 to 3 times the multiple of the other company? I think so. The truth is, Tesla's going to probably outgrow Apple if we're just looking at the next 5 years. I would say Tesla will outgrow Apple by a minimum of 5x. Minimum of 5x, but I think it's a potential of 10x. If Apple had 1% revenue growth right now, you could say Tesla's growing 22 times as fast as Apple. But we can't even say that because Apple's revenue is literally negative right now. So we're in an interesting dynamic where you have a company like Tesla that looks expensive next to Apple, but when you dig a little deeper, you realize, oh my gosh, this company is going to at least 5x, if not 10x plus, outgrow Apple over the next 5 years. So it should command a far superior multiple. Far superior. If you're going to grow 5x, your competitor or whoever, you should be able to command 5x the multiple, right? It just makes logical sense. And so that's where you get into interesting times in this market, right? In March, Musk announced that Tesla plans to build a new factory near Monterrey, Mexico, a day's drive from Austin, Texas factory. After meeting with India By the way, do you know what type of margins are going to come out of that factory? Oh my gosh, okay? And that's just going to be, in my opinion, that there's two ways to look at that, okay? Two ways to look at that. One is this is going to supercharge margins in a significant way, right? Because let's just call it what it is. If you're going to produce vehicles in Mexico, I can tell you it's going to be far cheaper than if you produce those same vehicles in Austin, Texas, and way cheaper than if you produce those vehicles in Fremont, California, okay? Bottom line, there's no debate about that. That's like simple, like business 101. But the other factor I don't think enough people are considering in regards to the potential, Monterrey, Mexico facility and what that could produce. I don't think enough people are considering the potential that instead of Tesla taking the extra margin they'd make on those vehicles made in Mexico, what they could do is lower prices even more, which would create a dynamic, right? Let's say it's let's just throw out a ballpark number. Let's say it's $3,000 cheaper to produce a vehicle at that Mexico facility versus Fremont, California, right? And we'll see where all the numbers shake out. Maybe it's way more than that. I don't know, okay? Let's just say it's $3,000. Tesla could say, you know what? We're going to drop $3,000 off the price. That creates another huge headwind for everybody that has to compete against Tesla because they just dropped price even more, which made their products even more competitive, which means you're in even a deeper world of trouble if you're anybody that has to compete with Tesla. So that's an intriguing part of whatever Tesla's up to here, is they can either take that as margin and throw it to the bottom line, or they can do the Amazon effect, which says, you know what, screw kind of numbers short term. It's kind of the Jeff Bezos approach. We are going to go ahead and we're going to take massive market share, and we're going to slaughter you guys because we're just going to take all this market share from you, and you're not going to be able to compete with us because we're not really worried about our bottom line right now. We're worried about our top line. That's Jeff Bezos 101, what he did with Amazon over why he was the leader of that company, right? And that's definitely what could be what Tesla's up to here. So we'll see how all that shakes out. After meeting with India Prime Minister, we'll just call him Modi, in New York in June, Musk said Tesla also is looking to invest in India as soon as humanly possible. I remember, it was a few years ago, I talked about, Tesla's potential in India long term. And a lot of people laughed at me. Oh, India, what a joke. Give me a break. No one there can ever afford a Model 3 or a Model Y or any Tesla vehicle, right? And I always thought India could be a massive market. You got 1 billion plus people living there. You have a huge growing middle class that's going to grow insanity over the next 10 to 20 years, in my opinion. I think India could be an insanely huge market for Tesla long term. And a lot of people laughed at me when I would say stuff like that. And now you have Musk meeting with the Prime Minister over there, right? And we're looking to invest in India as soon as humanly possible, right? Which clearly shows you that this is no joke. This is for real. And Tesla's going to likely build a massive business in India over the next 10, 20 years, which is very, very exciting. And you think about the robo-taxi opportunity. I mean, could it be bigger than it is in India? I mean, my gosh, okay. Think about, okay. So nonetheless, folks, I think more and more companies are starting to realize India, right? I think of the big tech companies, Meta's always been the company that's realized it before everybody else, with Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp specifically. And now all the other big tech companies, Apple, Tesla, all these other big dogs, are starting to take India a lot more serious, and they're starting to build facilities there, and they want to start building facilities there. And, Meta was just ahead of that game. I'll just be honest. Zuckerberg had a leg up on everybody. He saw that before Musk saw it. He saw it before Tim Cook saw it. He saw it before anybody. And they're gonna be positioned to thrive the best as far as India goes. But Tesla's got a huge opportunity in India. I can tell you that over this next 10, 20 years. Very, very exciting when it comes to that.